Welcome to our Orb Composer tutorial series brought to you by Hexachords. I am Benjamin, Creative Director for the Music Factory, and in this episode we will be showing you how you can make your very first track in Orb Composer version 1.1. This tutorial will assume that you have already set up your DAW template and mapped and loaded all VST or instrument sample libraries. If you're not sure how to do this, you can visit www.orb-composer.com/manuals and download a Getting Started guide. So in this episode, we're going to be going over some epic music that I created using Orb Composer. We're starting at about halfway through the piece. I didn't decide to record everything that I did here, but I just wanted to show you not how I made musical decisions, but how I went about making certain changes for decisions I had already made in my head. So for this particular piece, I started off with a very minor-major structure, which is sort of reminiscent of Metal Gear, one of the original soundtracks from, I believe it was old school Nintendo, where I think the chord structure there is C minor, C major for that particular piece, and I would kind of like that sound, but I wanted to be in A minor. So for this one, it starts off with heavy spiccato, low double bass, and cello, and then it goes all the way to about the middle theme here, where we're going to work on this last part together. So we're going to go ahead and play just a little bit of this. To talk about a little bit of this, as you can see, I chose spiccato for almost all the strings except for when the violins take the melody in the second theme block. To do this, it's really easy. All you have to do is just double-click to add a piece of a track, and then you can start by changing the rolls, changing the different articulations, etc. Now, epic music, not all epic music, but they tend to have a lot of spiccato strings, as well as kind of a big epic horn section here. So, going forward, my thought was I really want this to be kind of a dark epic piece, but I wanted to end on a more light-hearted, happy note. You're going to get to hear the entire piece as I created it and as it was mixed, mastered in the end. But for now, I'm just going to let you kind of watch a little bit of this while I talk about what I did. Now, I'm actually recording this in post. You're watching what I did as I was doing it. And right now I'm kind of thinking, what do I want to do here? What do I want to put here? So as you can see, I'm allowing the violins and violas and stuff to grow as we get to the next section. So what I did here is added in a melodic intro block and then added in, so here's what it sounded like without that block before. There was no transition. So what I did is I actually added in this block, and I added it in so that there's a build for the viola, violin 2, and violin 1 spiccato, and then also added the horns to kind of open up with a little bit of dynamic change from piano to mezzo and back to piano. So it comes up and goes down in dynamic to keep things kind of light at the beginning, but also dark and deep at the same time. So yeah, what I'm showing you here is that there's some dynamic changes from piano to mezzo forte, which basically just means very soft to middle loud. Here's what that sounds like. Now, really, this isn't too hard to do. A lot of things that you're going to find here is they kind of become irrelevant. For instance, when I'm working at this level of detail, the curves options menu is sort of irrelevant at this point because I'm not allowing it to write anything or determine those particular volumes. I'm doing that myself with the dynamic choices, as you can see I'm making here. So every dynamic choice that you see me making is overriding any intensity curve. The momentum curves are being overridden by the internal momentum that I'm adding to each block section. So as a reminder, currently Orb Composer does not write for percussion, so you do have to write your own percussion parts to go along with whatever piece of music it writes. So all along I'm sort of imagining what I want the percussion to sound like, and then later on you're going to hear what that sounds like when I've added that in to go with it. But so here I'm kind of adjusting some of the different, how many chord notes it plays together. Now something worth noting, that oboe line is not actually an oboe. I'm using Albion 1 legato woodwinds. Now, one thing I wanted to do also is get away from just using the legato horns. So you'll see in this second section here that I actually added staccatissimo horns as well, which is just to kind of back up what the strings and flute are now doing, where the flute takes over the melody. So I kind of did a similar thing that happened in the beginning where the flute plays one note towards the end of the first half of this theme and then crescendos into the second half of this theme, playing the melody as well. So as you see there, what I did is actually a chord inversion. That's a C minor over E flat, which means E flat will be in the bass. And then I realized that's actually a mistake. I don't want to have the A major, or the C minor there. I want to have the A major there, then go to a C minor, as I did in the second half there. So I'm going to end up fixing that, but what I find particularly interesting is just how much easier it is to fix this stuff with Orb Composer than it is for me to go into my DAW, write this out, and realize I don't like that particular chord arrangement, and then end up redoing all the chords and having to rearrange tracks and that kind of thing. Instead, Orb Composer just takes the wheel and says, all right, we're going to move this chord here, move that chord there, so let's rewrite this to fit it. Orb Composer also makes it really easy to move sections around. So if you don't like something where it is, you can move it to another instrument and it'll rearrange it for that instrument for you without you having to do that yourself. So we're coming up on some of the final edits that I made, and it's worth noting as well that I did almost nothing in post in terms of changing notes or rhythms or anything other than adding percussion to this particular piece. In addition, at the end of this, I will be playing the entire piece in full, the post-mastered version. So stick around until the very end and you'll be able to hear the final product. In addition, there'll be a link in the description where you can listen to the final piece of music that I created with this as well. Hopefully you found this video helpful. To get your copy of Orb Composer software, visit www.orb-composer.com. Here you can download your free, fully functioning demo or purchase the Artist or Pro versions of our software.